Hello, everyone who is listening, and to all my guests here on the show. This is Toni Weel from Florida, and this time it's raining. We need it. I would like to welcome our guest. Of course, Sara is with me, Katie, and Tat and Gary. And I find this a totally amazing group with such great insights and always love to have everyone here. The last time on the podcast 2 weeks ago, what came up was okay. What will be next time's topic? And we started to talk about tattoos and what is it doing to your health, and what came up was like, how can we actually prevent disease? So that is the topic of today. And many of us are already at an age, it's like prevent disease. I rather heal what I'm dealing with right now. But there's still a lot of things that you can prevent how things would get worse. And, that you don't have to worry about getting cancer or don't have to worry that your teeth or your hair fall out. And we need all these details. Okay, how do we do that? We don't go to a doctor and we don't take a bunch of pills and supplements and minerals, etc. How do we do this? And what is actually causing these problems? And tattoo is a big one. And I'm always amazed how many tattoos people can have. And I have two tattoos, a very small one and one that is maybe 3, 4 inches. Had them a long time. And at that time, we didn't think about, how bad it could be. You were like, yeah, you have to go to a tattoo parlor that is clean and not in someone's, back room so that you don't get an infection. And getting infections is an interesting topic also. But even with the tattoo parlors nowadays, you know what? I was actually amazed when I saw we only use vegan ink, and I was like, "Oh, Don, what did they use when I got my tattoo? I mean, this was in the early '80s. That was not vegan ink. I mean, what can be in ink that would be so bad? This was way before I knew Dr. Morse, raw food, healthy foods. And although I've always been like a food, well, no, a health nut, I would say, into herbs, homeopathy, all these kinds of things, healthy eating, and I didn't think twice about getting a tattoo. And I think it is the same for everyone else is now getting a tattoo. I mean, they don't worry about it. And sometimes it's like, how do we, wake them up? My daughter has a lot of tattoos, and then I saw my granddaughter she's only in her early 20s. It's like the whole side of her leg is tattooed. And it's like, oh my gosh, what did they do to themselves? And I don't even really know exactly what the ink is doing in your body, and maybe Gary or that or even Katie and Sarah know more about that. But my husband has tattoos from his time in the Navy. They're ugly. They're on his upper arm, and he wished they wouldn't be there, but he figured he will be causing more problems removing them, then just let it be and trust that it's all encapsulated and it will not hurt us anymore. But I think you guys may know more about that, and I would like to hear it. But there are other concepts about, how can we prevent diseases. So whoever wants to give their input, please do so.
Well, I have a tattoo too, Tony. I have it's about the size of maybe your thumbnail, and it's on my foot. It's a little ladybug, and I got it when I turned 18. And, it was special for me to get it. And when I got the tattoo, I always had heard rumors about tattoos and how that ink goes straight to your blood system and it's poisonous and things like that. But, just like so many things in my life where I heard these warnings, but it's like they didn't register with me. I just dismissed them and I kind of forgot about them. And so, when you talk about how your daughter has tattoos and your granddaughter has tattoos, um, I think about like these past couple of weeks, I've been in North Dakota and I've been staying with my cousin. And every Wednesday for weeks at a time, he was going and getting one more tattoo. So around his upper arm, he has these little letters. So let's say he has 7 letters. Okay, so then he went and got a tattoo for the last 7 weeks every Wednesday, and he's kind of bragging about them. And I'm like, oh, Garrett, 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 Garrett. Anyway, so today I even wondered, hearing what I heard when I was younger, prior to getting my tattoos about, oh, it goes straight to your blood and it's poison and things like that. I wonder if those same warnings are being shared with people. Is it still out there, or is it just that tattoos are so accepted that they don't even give those warnings anymore? And Toni, I am like your husband. Because, okay, so obviously I have been on this health journey for a while now, and I realized that I have a tattoo and it's not good for me. However, I'm like him, where I'm like, well, I already have it. I've had it since I was 18 years old, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, but I've had it for a number of times, a long, long time. And so I am actually just leaving it. I am not going to have it removed because I wonder about these removals of tattoos. How much more damage is that doing to me? And is it better, since I've already had it for so long, for my body just to kind of, it has already been working on it and it'll take care of itself in a way, the best that it can. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on the tattoos. I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but that's just my intuition on like, this is how I feel. This is what I'm going to do until I know better. So.
I think the problem is that when we hear, oh, it's not good for you, and it gets into your bloodstream, that's where it ends. We don't tell them that when it gets in your bloodstream, then this happens and it damages this part of your body. And when that is damaged, this is what is going to happen. So we don't see the end result of the damages that can be done. I mean, I have thyroid issues, I have arthritis, osteo, whatever, and all these names. And it's like, I didn't hear that when I was younger, and it's like, oh my gosh. I just caught myself on words that we're using over and over. And when I was making the transcript from last time's podcast, I saw that word, and now I hear myself saying it. I'm off track, guys. Don't mind me. I had
Well,
yeah.
well,
But
I can.
anyway, yeah, that you know what I'm saying with that. It's the same as when I was diagnosed, sort of. I was told, early 20s, you have bad kidneys through iridology. And okay, I have bad kidneys. Now what? You do not get to hear the rest of it. What is going to happen when your kidneys are not functioning 100%? And that is the same with the tattoos. People don't, you can say, oh, you can get infections. Oh, it's not good for you. But then what? What does it really mean?
Well, I think I could add some to the conversation in a little bit more detail so that people can kind of get a grasp on, why we're talking about this subject. But first, I want to send out to the atmosphere of the listeners that we are trying to be very compassionate and gentle and understanding with this subject, to not be offensive, not to be, judgmental in any way, because you're dealing with a subject that can be kind of triggering to people because it deals with things that they choose to do to their bodies to make them look better in their eyes. Because that's really the only reason why that we liked or people like to choose to use tattoos is it's just a form of vanity or a form of ways to, make our bodies look more appealing to ourselves or to others, when they see us, because really that's all it's for. It's not for health. It's not for, for anything that's really giving our bodies a true physical performance, benefit. So what you have to look at is you have to look at, first off, that it's a foreign substance that you're putting into the body. Okay. Well, what does the body do when you put any kind of foreign substance in the body that is not supposed to be in the body? The body thinks it's been poisoned because it sends out thousands of white blood cells to attack that substance from its immunity. Not your immune system, your immunity. That's your bacterial system that lives all throughout your body, especially in your intestines, but also in your skin. So your body is constantly on alert, thinking that there's a foreign invader, in my body, and it's something that is, that I have to, address. And so it weakens your lymphatic system and it weakens your immunity because your immunity lives within your lymphatic system and your other systems of the body. But also you damage the lymphatic system somewhat when you get the needles jammed in your skin back and forth at rapid speed because your lymphatic system is kind of right at the surface of your skin. It's not very far below the surface of the skin. So all the trauma of just the needles being plunged in the skin, and then also you have little shards, little microscopic shards of metal that comes off the needles every time that they're jammed in the skin too. Because also a lot of your tattoo guns, they have more than one needle that's moving very fast speed side by side. So they're kind of rubbing together at certain times. And then also a lot of the inks, like we just mentioned, they're not only are they not vegan sometimes, but they're also not organic. They can have different types of chemicals and different types of additives, and they use different types of chemicals to clean the skin and to prepare the skin, and just different methods that they do with the whole procedure. And a lot of times they use alcohol, which even further hurts the microbiome or the bacteria of the skin. And then what happens is because the body's trying to address that foreign pigment that is in the layers of the skin, which is part of the lymphatic system, it sends those tiny particles of pigments down to the lymph nodes. And they've actually dissected some of the lymph nodes they've taken out of people, and they've already turned black, completely absorbed by that pigment of those tattoos, and so that's what it's doing, is it's compromising their lymphatic system and their immune system. Now when you just get a few and you get some that are real small, you don't really have to worry about that because most of the time that's not going to really affect you that much because it's not that big of an area of your skin and your body that it's really going to affect. And we also have to think, according to our beloved teachings of detoxification and the process of elimination of toxins in our body, we have to think that the skin is one of the biggest channels of elimination that the body has. Because it's the largest organ in the body. Okay, so you're compromising your skin's ability to be able to detoxify that buildup of toxins and waste that it has naturally just from living our lifestyle, being in different environments with air pollution and toxic elements flowing through the air, and then also what we eat, what we drink, even natural metabolic waste that are produced just from eating healthy foods, much less the junkier, heavier foods, And so, see, that's what makes it where it's just something you're adding to your body. When you really don't stop and think before you get it done, you're like, is this really going to be the best choice for my body? And then also what happens psychologically is they start to get addicted to the tattoo process of actually being jammed with the needles, and they actually get addicted to it. So it doesn't just end for a lot of people with just one or two. It keeps going and going and going, and that's until they get whole sleeves and all those things that you see today. And in my personal opinion, I don't judge people for what I'm about to say, but I personally think that when people take it too far, it's degrading some of their natural beauty that they were born with, and that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm just saying it's just, you can notice it, you can see from across the room when they have a whole entire leg that's covered in all these different images and different pigments of color, it's kind of distracting to their overall beauty of their natural body, And of course, like I said, I'm not judging people for how they're using their body. I'm just talking about the topic since we're talking about it, because a lot of times I don't get to talk about this subject with people because I never want to offend them, So I'm just really talking about it now just to give information. That's what we're doing by talking about this subject today. And it fits right into what we're talking about with preventative, health care, because you have to really stop and think. You have to ask yourself every day in the way we live, is this going to hurt my body now or in the future? Is it going to contribute to things that will prevent illness in the future, or is it going to contribute to things that will cause illness in the future? And there's several people now, and even in our own community online, there's one lady, I wouldn't dare mention her name, but she has lots of tattoos and other things that she's done, and she's talking about having like autoimmune symptoms, or what they call autoimmune, and also Lyme symptoms, and just muscular weaknesses and nervous system weaknesses, because of she thinks that's one of the contributing factors is all of the tattoos that she's gotten. And she come to that realization after she had already gotten a large percentage of all of her body covered in them, and one of the last things I wanted to mention is that about the removal process is they say that yes, you can get it removed, but it hurts even worse than when you got them in the first place. But also, it breaks all the pigment into thousands of particles, and so it affects the lymphatic system and the body even worse, because then all those particles are distributed through the body easier than before when they were just isolated in that one certain spot. So they say that there's actually lots of research that shows that it can be even more harder on your body to recover and to cope with all of those, especially if you get, I guess, a large area removed. And I understand for some people they have to do that, because some people in the world, there's been cases where they joined gangs and they had all these really bad tattoos all over them from when they were in a gang, and they got all those removed and they look so much better. But their body's health and immunity and everything was probably strong enough that it could handle having all of those removed and it could still recover. But for some people, it's probably better just to leave it, than to mess with it. So what that says in my brain is the last closing statement that I will leave with everyone is, because then we can move on to other topics, because there's a lot to talk about in this subject, and I know we don't have but a certain amount of time, is that just stop and think before you get those things done, and just really stop and think and ask yourself, am I going to be happy with this all my life? Am I going to ever have any regrets? Because that was the one thing that kept me from getting any tattoos, was because I was like, it's permanent. I can't change my mind later. I have to be happy and be okay with this for the rest of my life. And so that was what kept me from getting them, because there was a couple of times that I thought that it would be cool, but it kept me from doing it. Plus, the thought of the pain of having the procedure done, and so that's the subject of the tattoos that I can contribute. But like I said before, I send much love to those that choose to do different things with their body, and I just want people to just have the awareness to stop and think, about how they use their body in what ways, and is it life promoting? Is it life extending? Is it life enhancing? Or is it going to be something that possibly could give you problems later? Because there's also, you have to address that you can get infections, and you could even get, especially if you have real low immunity, you could even get flesh-eating bacteria and all kind of different things. Because there's been many other cases where that's happened, where people have had tried to do things, especially with their skin, like to enhance it in certain ways, especially like cosmetic surgery, and they would end up getting infected, and then they'd end up getting flesh-eating bacteria sometimes. But those are also in people that have very compromised immune systems, or very low immunity, that don't have a strong enough system, and plus their system's really overwhelmed from toxicity already, that it's not strong enough to recover from it. But I'll pass it back to you guys. I hope that was contributing and useful for some people listening. Yeah.
Well, what I would say is, I don't have any tattoos. The reason is I'm a graphic designer and a sculptor, so I've never seen something that I want on my body permanently, and it has to make sense. To be there, it has to make sense. I do notice when I go places and I see somebody with tattoos, I ask them what that tattoo represents in their life, because they do it because it means something to them. And it's a good way to start a conversation, but also psychologically, you can figure out where they are and their thought process and how they feel about life, because those tattoos are about their life, really. And you can have some pretty deep conversations, because most people who have tattoos can have a real deep conversation. I mean, because they represent something. And yeah, it goes into your system. The blood is coming out and it's pushing some of it out while it's there, but some of it is going into the lymph, and it goes to the lymph nodes because that's where the lymph goes, right? And there are ways to detox that out of the lymph nodes. And anything like, I met a guy that was in Vietnam, and he had been shot in the leg, and he had one of those little bulldogs with a cigar and the little derby hat. He had it tattooed over the bullet wound to kind of hide it. I didn't meet this woman, but I did meet somebody. There's a video online, and this woman had a radical mastectomy on one side of her body, and she went to a tattoo guy, and he tattooed, I can't remember what it was, but it was absolutely beautiful, and it went right down and it went over that area, and it hit all that scar tissue and everything. And she felt very incomplete to be with someone because of that. And once she had that tattoo, she was perfectly fine to be intimate with people. So there's a great psychological thing that goes along with that. And if you took a certain, let's say a tumor, right? The body will take that, whatever is wrong, acid usually, and it'll put it in a sterilized container that we know is a tumor. Well, it'll build a network around anything in that tattoo to keep it away from the rest of the body, to like build a nest around it to separate it, so that it's like getting shot and having a bullet inside you and they can't take it out. It'll build a net around that so that you don't get lead poisoning or whatever that bullet was. And there are a lot of people living with bullets in their body. So, there are some, I think most gang tattoos, they shift as they get older. And that's why they have them removed. When they're in the gang, it's fine, or prison, or wherever they are, right? It's fine. But as they get older and they shift mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, that's when they want to have them removed. And there's a group in Providence, Rhode Island, at one of the universities, that invented an ink that can be taken back out. I don't know much about that ink, and I don't know what's doing to people physically. But it is an option that some people are doing, this particular ink. And I don't know what the process is to take it out, but I bet it's not very much fun. So really, that's all I have to say about them is when I see somebody who has tattoos, it's an invite for me to have a conversation with them because I'm fascinated by the tattoo and the psychology that went with that tattoo. Like that woman that had that radical mastectomy and had that tattoo went right over her back and came around the front and went right down over that. And I think it was flowers. And she just felt so much better about herself rather than having that scar there. So psychologically, they can be very powerful. And if it empowers you, then it seems to me it would power your immune system too, because you feel good about it. So I don't know. I think that's where I'd end up right there is they're a lifestyle and they're a choice, and I could never make that choice. Wanted to, but being a graphic designer and changing my mind, not changing my mind, but I do 1,500 to 2,000 signs a year, and they're all different designs and color combinations and all that. That's why I could never pick one for me. I would say if I did have one, it'd probably be the Mayan yin and yang, and I would design it. But I'm 73 now, so not that I couldn't get a tattoo at 73. I don't want to anymore. I guess that's the bottom line. So anyway, let's go back to.
I guess it gets less important when you are older.
Yeah.
I love the tattoo I have. They have a very special meaning. They're not visible to anyone, only to my husband and myself when I look in the mirror. And they still look great because they never get out in the sun. But yeah, it is art, and but yeah, I think we covered the topic of tattoos. Unless you want to add something to it, Sarah, we haven't heard from you. Sarah is probably busy and on mute. That's okay. Yeah, guys, let's move on to how can we prevent disease. Nowadays I hear so many people, I have Lyme, I have mold, I'm affected by this, by that. And yeah, we know there is so much junk in everything, the air that you breathe. But with the air that you breathe, and I know that Gary can add to that, we have a filter system in our body. So that's one thing. It is the water that we drink. Yeah, we can filter it out. I actually had somebody talk on a podcast about mold, and he said it is the toxicity of the building materials that is getting into your body, and it's not necessary. We call it mold, but it's not really the mold. And yeah, what else is there? People talk about Lyme disease. It's like everybody seems to have Lyme disease. When I came to the United States a long time ago, for the first time, I was told in certain areas, be careful that when you get bitten by ticks and you could get Lyme disease. Now it's like everybody seems to be tested positive for Lyme disease. Can we prevent that? What is going on? Because we're all about, helping people and prevent further symptoms. And of course, we know we have to look in what food are we eating. We spoke just before the podcast with Gary about food and what is happening with everything and how bad it is and how the temperatures can affect how the food or your fruit comes out. And I actually have seen that with my own mangoes this year, much smaller than the years before, than 2 years ago, I think. But it's like we already have symptoms, and I think I have to go back in time a little. When you are younger, you feel kind of invincible. You know, nothing is really going to happen to you. That occasional bellyache or headache, it's like, oh, well, you know, that's just there. Everybody has that, no big deal. It's a sign of things getting worse. You're not supposed to have those. But then you get to an age when it's all adding up and you go to a doctor because it's getting too much. And that is where, how can we actually, I don't want to really say intervene, but make people clear that the symptoms that we have, the headaches, etc., are not normal. But we rarely deal actually with very young people. It's only a few, a small percentage that I think we're all working with. But the majority is people who have already been to doctors. Now, we don't want them to get to the point that they are being diagnosed with cancer or with severe arthritis. So, yeah, give your input, guys.
This before too. I
Oh,
actually
Sarah,
got a phone
you're
call.
cutting, Sarah, you're cutting in and out.
Can you
We
hear me
cannot
now?
hear you clearly.
Try
Can you hear
again,
me
Sarah.
now?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can hear you now.
now we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a call and I got booted off somehow. Never happens, but what I was gonna say about like the tattoos and stuff too, because I myself have one and I've had it for probably over 25 years now. I have looked into getting it removed, and I'd always worried, you know, what would happen, would my health change if I did have it removed? And at this time I have decided to keep it as well too. And you know, we see what kind of comes out in the future, do more research myself. But what I was going to say on that was I believe that our bodies are so, most people, not everybody, are so used to their body going and working on all the digestion that it cannot go and take care of the tattoo and start breaking it down. So it does like a temporary kind of fix on it where it protects your body from the tattoo since it is a foreign substance. And then if we slow down our digestion, we stop eating so much and everything, then your body can then go and start working slowly on the tattoo. And that's why over time, the tattoo could start fading and stuff as well. But I think, I don't know if it was Thad or Gary said that it kind of puts a protective area around the tattoo until it can get with it. Now, that being said, that's the same thing kind of with any disease. The more backed up our body gets, the more we're eating different foods all at the same time and with different salts and stuff. Our body has to go down and work on digestion, so it can never be working on repair, detox, and things like that because it's constantly overloaded with everybody down there trying to break up the foods. Mm-hmm. But that's my take on it. I think some tattoos are absolutely beautiful, and the artists that do them, I mean, it's incredible on some of these. So I'm not judging anyone for having them, and I know a lot of people have deep emotions connected to some of them. At the same time, that is kind of like wearing your trauma and becoming part of your trauma also. And I don't know enough about, is that healing or is that you always identifying as your trauma too? And the fact that our bodies are supposed to last a lot longer than what they do. If this were like in a perfect world, we'd be carrying those tattoos for hundreds of years. And so would that trauma or that meaning still really mean something to you then? I don't know. But that being said, it's everybody's body. I know that they've become very much a fad. And when things become a fad, it makes me think, what is the agenda behind them? So those are kind of different little thought processes. But these are thoughts I would have never had when I first got my tattoo either. I was young and nothing was really talked about, but my mind has been opened more, and so I have a lot more thoughts about stuff at this age. That's all I had to say.
The other thing about tattoos too is people that have women that have breast implants, like a radical mastectomy and have a reconstruction. There are people out there that specialize in tattooing nipples back on their breasts, and they feel so much better, such a relief that
Of course.
they have a nipple again.
Yeah, I never ever wish that upon anyone, and I fully understand why they want to do that, and my heart really goes out to them. But if you back up even further than that, it's a terrible thing that it even has to get to that, because of the education of what they give us on our food and how they've poisoned us. So not only are they hurting us physically, they're traumatizing us mentally, and it's something that no one should ever have to go through. And there's no reason for people to have to go through that if they didn't want to keep us sick.
True. The whole thing is your lymphatic system. We have 6 gates, and underneath the arms there's a lot of lymph nodes, and gate 3 goes to gate 1, because gate 2 is up here. We keep this area flowing lymphatically. It keeps the acids from backing up, and it will eliminate, even if you have breast cancer or some other type. Once we get that flowing and open that lymphatic system up, and cleavers is a great one for that. That's an herb. So opening up those pathways, that will drain out and go out through the 13 channels of elimination, and can help eliminate the cancer, because it's in a sterilized container. And when they do a biopsy, if you took a balloon and put water in it, punch a bunch of holes in it, the water's going to leak out. And what's inside there? Cancer. So it's going to start leaking out, so they can tell you if it's benign or cancerous. Well, once it gets out in the system, that's when it can spread. Cells can't move. They're sitting in their acid. And the more congested they get, they're still going to try to absorb. They're going to try to digest, and they have to eliminate. Well, just sitting in that, and it's burning them. So like having a rash on your arm, right? And we have to go in and soothe that and open up that pathway to get that congestion out of there. And once that happens, wherever that container is, that trash can, it's going to start cleaning it out, and it will reduce it and eliminate it. But it takes patience, time, and consistency. And if we're not willing to do that, which most people, until they're forced to, will not do it, because they're listening to their doctors. And I'm not saying that all doctors are bad. I'm saying the system that they're using is not working, and they've been doing the same thing for 100 years with the same, if not worse, results. Because it's about the congestion of the lymphatic system. Down here, gate 5 is right in the crotch area, right where the legs connect to the torso. And you want to get underneath the leg here. If it backs up here, ovaries, uterus, prostate, anus, testes. I mean, it's all right here. When it backs up and those acids get in there, they're going to go to the weakest place, and those cells are going to sit in that, and it's going to burn them, because that's what acids do. They burn things, and we have to figure out ways to open up these gates, which I have 6 lymphatic gates in a lot of my videos. Just doing this right here, you're moving all the gates. Okay, they're behind the knees, they're in the groin, from under the solar plexus down to the belly button. Right here, where the shoulder rolls into the chest plate. just above and below your collarbone, each side, right behind your earlobe or above your jaw. That's the largest lymph node in the neck. And if that area is sore, then it's backing up in the head. And that's forgetfulness and dementia and Alzheimer's and brain fog. And that all happens because things are backing up in the lymphatic system, and these acids can cause plaque and all kinds of issues. So keeping the lymphatic system clean through breath, because we have 3 pumps, lymphatic pumps, balls of the feet. That's why it's important to walk and breathe through the nose, and the diaphragm. As it goes down, it's pushing down on all your organs and glands, and what's up here relaxes the heart, the lungs, makes more room for the lungs to take in oxygen, because a body that has the correct amount of oxygen, it will eliminate disease. It's dis-ease, not disease. So then when you exhale, it comes back up and it's helping to pump the blood. And down here, you're massaging both, everything below and everything above. So it's like a toilet plunger. You know, you're plunging the toilet, you're pushing, you're pulling, you're pushing, well, that's what the diaphragm does. And you can manually override that. People go, well, I know how to breathe. Well, you know how to breathe, but you know how to breathe to maximize your detox, because 70% of your detox is through your breath, if you're breathing properly. And if you're not, you're shallow breathing, you're in fight or flight, and it shuts down your immune system, shuts down your ability to think, and all you want to do is run. So those are the things that we have to work on. We don't have to, but it's a good idea to. And we breathe in through the nose, okay? Nice deep belly breath. And we want to make sure the ribs get involved, because you can do a belly breath without involving the bottom of the rib cage. So you don't put your hands on your lower rib cage. And when you breathe in through your nose, you want to see your hands move. And then when you exhale through your mouth, your hands should come back together. If you don't get any movement, that just shows you how tight this area is, how much tension is in it. And you just keep working slowly. And what the other thing is happening is you're moving your primal brainstem. So this is down here. And when you're shallow breathing, you're not moving that. And that pushes up on the cerebellum, and your pineal gland is in there. And we're crystal compounds, basically the whole body. That's why we transmit and receive from the atmosphere, from the universe. And that pineal gland, because the cerebellum, your whole head is expanding and contracting, the plates keeps them mobile. Because if they get stuck anywhere, you're going to start having neurological issues. So as you breathe and that's expanding and contracting, it's moving that pineal gland, and that pineal gland has pineal crystals on it. And as it shakes and they touch, they start to generate energy. And that energy, once you are not there anymore, that energy will come down through your body. And you can have it go out, or you can have it go back up right into the brain. And that's how powerful our breath is. And it is probably the greatest detoxer, immune builder that you can have, because breathing through the nose turns on the parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, and heal, which is your ability to think and digest and have a calm body, you know, the heart. So that's kind of my take on it. We want to get that rib cage moving out, the bottom of it, the top too, but we have to make sure the bottom is moving. And to rub the chest between the bones of the rib cage into the muscle, all the way right down, right into the lower part, and get everything flexible here, so that when we breathe, we get a nice full breath. And the lion's breaths we do empty the toxins out of the bottom of the lungs, because they're heavier than the air. And once we eliminate those, this is down in the bottom is where most of your oxygen transfer into the blood goes. Well, if it's full of toxins, you're not getting as much oxygen in your blood because you're in fight or flight. So when you get into rest, digest, and heal, which is what sleep is about, it's about rest, and so when you look at the balls of your feet and you're walking, right, that's going to travel all the way from gate 6 to gate 5 to gate 4 to gate 3 to get to gate 1. And that's why it's so important to lay down and rest, and why your breathing changes at night, so that when you're moving the lymph and it's going up and it's dumping into gate 1. And during the day, gate 2 to gate 1 is a very short distance, because it's important to keep the mind clean and clear. And when it isn't, that's when we start having all the memory problems and all this stuff. So, anybody else?
Yeah,
go ahead.
go
Ted.
ahead. Go ahead, Tony. You haven't been talking as much as the rest of us.
I like listening. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay. I was gonna say yes. I agree completely with what you're saying, Gary, about the breathing and the how our body is flexible and how to adjust to different things that's going on. And one thing that I'll add, briefly, because we could have a whole discussion about the importance of proper breathing and deep breathing, because it's such an overlooked thing. Everyone talks about things I can eat, things we can drink, herbs we can take, but they never stop and think of the most basic requirements we need, the breathing, the sunshine, the time spent in nature, the most basic elements, that our bodies really need, and we spend too much time in the concrete jungle where that's antagonistic, it's negative to our bodies and to our souls, our spirits, because it's light pollution, noise pollution, air pollution, all these electromagnetic, pollution, which definitely interferes with our spiritual's electrical charge and our overall body's electrical charge. But one thing I wanted to add to the deep breathing that you were talking about is one thing that I've discovered over the last few years of practicing it a lot is that one thing that's very important is the retaining of the breath with full air and retaining of the breath without any air. Because what that does is that helps to strengthen the air capacity that you can contain, and how comfortable you are holding your breath without any air. Because there was Dr. Batenko and his method of breathing. He would actually talk about that you can tell how well your nervous system is functioning and how sensitive it is by how comfortably you can hold your breath with no air. He said if you only hold it with if you can only hold your air, I mean your lungs with no air for less than 30 seconds, that shows that your nervous system is unstable and that also your lungs are weak. Because he said, if you're doing things, if you're breathing properly and you're living a lower stress life, you should be able to, hold your lungs, your lungs without any air for much longer than 30 seconds. And I discovered too, as you practice it and you get your lungs stronger and you breathe deeper into the diaphragm, you can actually be able to do that much easily and do it comfortably, where you don't have to force it, because you should never force the breathing exercises. They should be something that's a comfortable practice. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add to it, because it's very powerful, and it's one of the greatest tools you can use to help to relieve stress and anxiety and irritation to the nervous system. It helps a lot with that. But one thing I wanted to mention while we still have time to talk about it today is, I guess the easiest way I could sum up, if someone asked me, how do we practice preventative health care and preventative practices in our lives, is we first have to think about what one of the greatest teachings that Dr. Morse, as well as many other natural practitioners, have taught us, is that it's all about maintaining the buildup of waste in our bodies, because they say that's really what we die from, is we suffocate from a buildup of waste in our bodies. But it's not just physical waste or metabolic waste, it's also mental waste and spiritual waste. There's so many different types of waste. So really that's why Dr. Morse has said over the years, you just have to listen for these small little nuggets of where he says these things, is he's really teaching us how to be a janitor, to our bodies, how to maintain the waste and how to do it on a daily basis if you can, or at least a weekly basis on you where you, if you can, where you practice certain practices and techniques to maintain that waste from building up. And that's also why he's told all these stories and all these analogies, like the sewer system, how you don't want it to back up because if it does, it'll start flowing out of your toilets and coming into your household. It's the same thing as how he talked about the pig's heart that they kept alive for years, but they had to clean it every day or it would fail. And then that's what ended up making it fail after all those decades of how they were keeping it alive, is someone forgot to clean it and they came back in after a weekend and it was gone. And so that's what I want people to think about, because a lot of your ancient cultures, the biblical days and all those times, they did fasting. They did things when their genetics were stronger where they could handle it and their bodies weren't so overwhelmed with all these man-made chemical pollutants that we have in the world and all of the things we're exposed to, our food, our water, our air, our everything, even the environment with the electricity and all that, with those people from those days, plus their genetics were much stronger, back then. So they could handle water fasting every spring. And that was pretty much what they did. Of course, they used herbs and stuff too as well. But that's what I mean by we can't do that as easily these days for a majority of us, because our genetics and our bodies can't handle how aggressive those types of fasting can be. So we have to use other tools like eating the high vibrational fruits and using the herbs. And while we're speaking about the herbs, there's so many wonderful herbs that will actually help to strengthen your DNA. Like one of the ones that I love to talk about is Ho Shu Wu or Foti. It has been shown to have some of the highest levels of zinc out of all the plants. And that's one of the things that helps repair your DNA. And that's one reason why they think reverse or prevent our hair from going gray. Because really, all the reason why we lose the pigment of lymphatic waste and acids, and because I've even noticed that some, when you pull on a hair that's gray, it's easier to come out, and it's also more damaged, like it's more squiggly and more deformed versus a normal pigmented hair. And so you can tell. And then you can also see that by how people go through traumatic incidences in their life and their hair will turn gray all of a sudden over just a short period of time, and that's from trauma, trauma that can happen and stuff. So really, just to sum it up, because we could talk for several hours about this subject because it's so complex with the different things you can do. But to really sum it up, you need to just think daily on how to maintain your joy, your happiness, your love, your alkaline energies of your spirit communicating with your body and communicating with the world. Because you have to daily tell your body that you love it and that you appreciate this vehicle that we have. And the vehicle is going to give you different lights on the dashboard telling you what's going on, and that's the different symptoms we have. And so you address those symptoms accordingly. You don't go chasing the symptoms around out of fear and worry. You address them accordingly with different techniques that you can do to help them to improve, so that your nervous system and your body can go, oh, okay, I feel a little bit better about that. I see that that's improving. I see that that's, going forward. But also I want people to understand that sometimes we have to embrace the challenges that happen, because sometimes you look back on things that you went through and you say, man, really, that was so much more beneficial than if it hadn't have happened in my life. So really you start to see that some of the things that we fear are some of the things that we really need, some of the things that really can help us in our lives. And so you start to understand that everything's just a divine sequence of serendipitous, like we were talking about, a couple of weeks ago, and so that's kind of what I would say about this subject, is just think every day on how you can prevent things from happening, prevent buildup of waste, prevent buildup of dis-ease or discomfort, and just keep doing things to help you to have joy and happiness and how you're spending your time that you have on this planet. Do things that truly give your spirit and your soul joy, not just your ego and your mind and your body, because a lot of those times, those are things we're chasing that are just distracting us from having that true spiritual and mental and emotional happiness, because that's why we get so hung up on all the things that distract us from what we really should be addressing. But it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of braveness, it takes a lot of willingness to sit in that discomfort so that you can soothe the young child within, which is the psyche of where you carrying all of these different emotions and feelings from not only your life's journeys, but your family's life journeys, the collective energy from the world's life journeys and everything it's going through, so it's really quite complex. But if you just keep thinking that we have the power to change a lot of these things by how we live, how we act, how we think, how we breathe, how we behave, how we respond to others and respond to our environment. So the more you keep having that awareness and keep studying and keep researching different tools that you can use, different practices, different exercises, different herbs, all these different things that you can do, you'll start to see that, oh well, I can use this to do this, I can use this to negate this, I can use this to help to improve this, and so once you learn all those things, then you can learn how to address them easier. But that's what I would contribute to it, just in a short little synopsis or a synapse of what we can do to help prevent illness and disease. But of course, it goes so much more complex into it than that, because this is just a quite complex subject. But I'll pass it back to you guys, and y'all can talk about it some too.
Well, you pointed out something important, and that is the maintenance. We care more about taking care of our car or our house or yard.
Tony, you're breaking up a little bit too.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think we can hear you a little bit better now. It may be from your storm.
Actually, it stopped.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear you better now. You're back now.
Okay. That you pointed out the maintenance in taking care of our bodies, and I know we take better care of our car or house or yard and find that very normal, and then kind of neglect our bodies and not being aware of the neglect until something is wrong. And we prevent it with our cars because, if we put in the wrong fuel, it wouldn't last long. If we don't fix those brakes, we won't have any brakes, etc., etc. And it goes into maintenance. There was something that showed up for me in front of me yesterday, and that was posted by Lauren Whiteman. Many people know her from the Natural Hygiene group on Facebook. But she posted the 19 factors for optimal health, and it goes right into what we were talking about. And it goes by number. 1 was pure air, 2, pure water, 3, cleanliness, both internal and external, 4, sleep. 5, temperature maintenance. 6, diet, pure, wholesome food to which we are biologically adapted. 7, exercise and activity. 8, sunshine upon our bodies. 9, rest and relaxation. 10, play and recreation. 11, emotional poise. 12, security of life and its means. 13, pleasant environment. And 14, creative, useful work. 15, self-mastery. 16, belonging. 17, motivation. 18, expression of the natural instincts. And 19, indulgence of aesthetic senses. And when that all comes together, I can only see health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of those things are very important, like we were talking about. And one thing I want to add to what you just said, Tony, because that's what I enjoy so much about a conversation when multiple people is that we can kind of springboard off of each other's comments.
Mhm.
Is that
Mm.
I wanted to speak to a moment to all of the listeners is that please, my friends and fellow humans, please be aware that what Toni said is that don't wait till you have a crisis in your life or wait till everything gets so critical or wait till you get so much older in your years until you start to have all these things piled on your lap that you need to address, because just be aware that your body and your soul and your spirit and everything that makes up who you are, it can process and handle and try to recover and repair and reverse some of those conditions that's going on the earlier in your life that you have to live, and so because we have so many people in the community, I talk with them a good bit on the Telegram group, and we have people all the time in there. They say, I have an older relative. She's like 83 years old. She has all these problems. What can we do for them? And it's in the critical stage, and we want to try to help her to be able to live a little longer and enjoy her life a little more. And I feel so heavy emotions, and I want to say, well, she's kind of waited till the part where it's kind of hard for her body to recover because she's gotten so much older and her DNA and her body's immune system and everything has gotten weaker from just the aging of life. And so, you can't really tell them, well, it's kind of harder for them to do it now because they waited so late in their life to do it, so, but at the same time, you have to explain to them that their bodies can only recover so much sometimes because of just the aging process and the way that it happens, in the body. So that's why I just explain to people that, we need to think every day, am I okay with what possibly could happen if I keep living this lifestyle and this direction that I'm going on? And just, because I mean, like cancer, for example, they say a lot of cancers, it takes 10 years for it to ever get critical. It spends that long of time of it growing, like tumors and things, it can take that long. So what I'm saying is, don't wait till the tumor gets stage 4 before you do something about it. Work on it while it's still in the early stages, back at the beginning of that, of its development and growth, and while we're talking about that is that, again, it goes back to those teachings of what we're talking about is that really, if you understand how acids cause inflammation and then you discover where the inflammation is at in the body, then you can prevent your body from even developing a tumor or a pocket of trash. Because they have a new method out. Well, it's not new. It's been out for probably a decade or maybe 20 or 30 years. I'm not sure. It's called thermography, where they look at the body's temperatures. And by looking at thermography, you can actually see the beginning stages of a tumor because you see the heavy pockets in the body where the inflammation is the highest. And that's actually what they use nowadays instead of doing, well, if you pay with your own money, because of course insurance won't cover it. But that's how they detect breast cancer much easier for the ladies instead of doing mammograms, because and it's way less invasive and it doesn't subject the body to radiation. So again, those are tools that we can use to help to discover areas of our body that we need to work on. So again, going back to what we said before and what we're talking about this whole time is keep thinking of your body as your vehicle or your spacesuit, and you got to keep putting it in the shop and keep looking at it, diagnosing it, looking at the things that are going on. Think about how you can tune it up. Think about how you can improve it. Think about how it can function better. And remember one thing that's so very true is the same thing that will heal disease is the same thing that will prevent disease. So if you do the things that naturally will help heal that disease, you will be preventing any future disease too. And see, that's the same thing we do with any time a person has cancer or tumors or any of that, is that when you put them on the protocol, it stops it in its tracks from getting worse. And then it will stay kind of limbo for a while. And then the more you do things to help improve the genetics, the DNA, the person's quality of life, their quality of joy, their quality of happiness, their quality of love, when you start to do that, then their body will go in reverse, and then you'll start to get into the regeneration field, and see that's why we have so many people that ask us. They're like, "Well, how do you get to regeneration?" And that's what it takes, is you have to do so much work consistently and diligently and determined, like, be very persistent and diligent about doing the program. And according to how strong your genetics are, then it will, after so long of doing that, your body will get to the regenerative stage and it will be able to regenerate, but what confuses people, and I'll talk about this just for a minute or two, but it is a big topic as well, is that so many people will compare other people's stories and their journeys and think that they can achieve the same results. Well, that's not always the case, because we're all on individual journeys, and what works for one person and what happens for one person isn't always going to happen for us as well. Because, like, for example, everyone is always amazed, because it is an amazing story, of how Dr. Morse got that diabetic man that had his toe was rotting off, how he got the toe to regenerate so fast. But it was because that guy was so willing and so believing and so trusting and filled with so much motivation and belief and love and all those things that he needed, that he followed Dr. Morse's advice to the T. He did everything Dr. Morse said, and he didn't waver from that at all. And he got his body so clean, his body started recovering and repairing so rapidly that his body was getting to the regenerative stage. And that's why he regrew his toe like that. And so that's what I'm trying to explain to people, is that, we want to just be excited by not what we can achieve, that we want to copy what others have achieved, but want to achieve what's unique to us and our journey, and say to yourself, well, man, what am I going to be able to achieve with my life and my body and my life's path? And get excited about that and what the possibilities are. But don't be disappointed when it doesn't always go your way, because remember, it takes time, and have patience, because we have so many people in our community. They're like, how long is this supposed to take? How long could I expect it to take? How long do I have to eat this way? We have all these questions. And remember, let go of time and just trust that it's going to take as long as it takes with your body. You may not know the answer, but your body does. And your body's going to let you know just by going on the journey. It's not going to, be a voice and tell you, oh, it's going to take 2 years and 3 months. It's not going to say that, but you just have to go on the journey and see what it's going to unfold. But you just have to have patience and understanding and trust, and be very happy and proud of yourself for going on the journey, for having the awareness to be willing to do that for your life and for your body. Because so many people, they get so overwhelmed with just the normal standards of life, like, our jobs and our careers and our taking care of our families and our homes, that they put their health off to the last, because they say, oh, I don't have time for that. Oh, that's not as important. I have all these other things. They're weighing them down and weighing their spirit down, because their spirit really wants to be doing other things that are so much more fulfilling. But earlier in their life, they got themselves in a path and a situation that it led to what they're experiencing. And so that's why, again, we just have to stop and be aware so much in everything we choose to do in our life's path, because remember, the cause and effect applies to everything. That is a universal rule that will never be overrid, is there's always going to be cause and effect to every action that you take. And so be aware of that, and you can stop and you can say, are these results or effects from what I'm doing in my life, am I going to be proud of that, or am I going to be okay with that? Because there's so many people, when you tell them honestly that you caused this, you did this to yourself through your lifestyle and way you live, they get so upset. They put so much guilt and blame on themselves, and it creates so much shame that it causes the young child within to want to run away, and then they'll get mad at you, because they'll spew back some of that hatred towards themselves on you for bringing that to the surface, when you have to stop and say, well, I have to take responsibility. And see, some people aren't able psychologically to take responsibility and to say, well, if I did it, then I can unwind it, possibly. Possibly, because see, that's how you take something where you could feel, shame with, and you could reverse it and then let it empower you. Is you could say, if I created it, then there's a high possibility I can uncreate it too by doing the reverse of what created it. And that again, it goes back to cause and effect. It's quite simple and quite elementary if you really think about it. It's just all about, physics and laws of the way the universe works. If you do the opposite of what caused it, a lot of times you will reverse it, or you will get a totally different outcome than what caused it in the first place. But see, sometimes people aren't willing to do the opposite of what causes their issues or their challenges in life. And so you have to be willing to sometimes say, okay, if it takes me living a totally different lifestyle than I've been living for the last 30 or 40 years, then I'm willing to do that. But you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. You're going to have to change a lot of ways you're thinking and focusing and talking and believing. And you have to be aware of that, because they say after you pass the age of 25, your patterns of behavior get so stuck or so ingrained that it takes strong, very strong discipline to change those patterns of behavior. And that's why we hear all these phrases like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks and all these things. But you can do it, but it takes very strong discipline, because it takes daily patterns of rewiring the mental faculties, especially because if you take someone that's been thinking negatively for 30 years, it's going to take positive thinking for the next couple of years at least to start to change that or start to unwind that. So that's what people have to be aware of, is that longer you've been practicing those unhealthy habits, it's going to take lots of future practicing to unwind them, and you just want to have patience with it. But yeah, that's all I wanted to add to the conversation in that little rant.
Did you want to add anything, Gary or Sarah?
Yeah. So one thing is, if we want to be consistent going forward, we have to change our story. And really, really change our story. And the danger that I've found working with people is, as soon as they start to feel good, they go back to the diet that made them sick, and they get sick again, and then they get frustrated. So helping them change their story, because every time we change our story, we change our life, right? If you're a carpenter and all of a sudden you don't want to be a carpenter anymore, you go learn to be a plumber, you learn that language and you're a plumber, and then you can go be a mathematician or whatever, as long as you understand the language of whatever that is. Well, there's a language. It's not a detox, it's a lifestyle. Detox will clean it out, yes, and it will eliminate disease, but we have to maintain that. We can go back to some of the foods, but those foods are addicting. And we're actually fighting a very strong addiction, like, man-made sugars. I mean, they light up the same part of the brain that cocaine does. Now, cocaine may be on a different level, but it's still the same receptors. And we get a rush from it. And that's why it's so hard to get rid of sugar. And we're having way, way, way too much sugar. And why are we having too much sugar? Because there's no taste in the food. So I have to sweeten it to get them to eat it. And this is what happened with mad cow disease. They were feeding the innards of the cows they slaughtered, putting high fructose corn syrup in it, and drying it and making it into pellets so that the cows would eat it, because they're not cannibals. They want to eat grass and maybe some oats or something. But the whole thing is, it's set up to keep us in fight or flight. The matrix is set up to keep us in fight or flight. And until we can step back from that, be grounded where we are inside ourselves, right here, and not let the mind run away with our rest, digest, and heal, because we're going into fight or flight, which is easy to do. Just think of the IRS knocking on your door, or a policeman or something, and you don't even know why they're there. To put you in instant fight or flight. So then you can't think, you can't digest, you're having a hard time breathing because you're shallow breathing. And that brings up your first breath is in. You can't be here without it. I don't care how great your body was. If you don't catch that first breath, you're not going to be in this realm. And the last one is out. And that's when the energy goes back to source and the body stays here, because the body's of the earth and the breath is from the universe. And it's what turned on the whole electrical system, lungs, heart, the whole thing. And between our heart and our head is our tongue. And if we get too much in our head, we can hear it in the stories we tell. If we're fearful, we can hear it in the stories we tell. If your relationship breaks up, it can be really difficult, but then you start a new relationship and you get comfortable in that one. And that is your new story. And you're building your life based on that story. And if you're comfortable in that story and you're taking care of your body, because most people, their head is not connected to their body anymore because they're so in the matrix that they can't feel their body. And when you can't feel your body, you lose touch with it. And when you lose touch with it, you lose things like your knees, your hips, your elbows, your whole health system starts to break down. So as everybody's been talking about, being in touch with it, listening to our body's speaking to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we've forgotten how to hear it. So the only thing it has left is like a baby cries when it needs attention. Well, our body, when it needs attention, gives us pain. And the more we ignore it, the more pain we get, the more inflammation, the more acids, the less flow. So as we start to detox and we start to realize these things and we're flushing the body out, it's good to stay connected to the body, to tap it, to pat it. Matter of fact, if you breathe through your nose right now, and then you exhale, okay, and now we're back to a normal breathing, okay? Just remember what it was like to breathe through your nose. Pat down your arm. This opens your sinuses. And then breathe through your nose. It's much easier to breathe through your nose when you do that. There are unbelievable amounts of places on your body that you can do that through the energy meridians that will relax those areas. You know, I've had 5 people with that had COVID that couldn't taste or smell. All 5 of them got their sense of taste and smell back within just a few minutes, because what's happening is anything where there's inflammation in the body, which in that case was your sinuses and your ability to taste, it's inflammation. And the nerve cannot vibrate like it's supposed to. It's not traveling through. So it shuts off its ability to do those things. So through EFT, tapping on the electrical system in different places, we're able to reduce that inflammation through breath and just tapping, and they got it back. I mean, we are powerful beyond measure. I have no idea how powerful we are, but I'm learning, and it is mind-blowing how powerful we are. We are the consciousness of the universe. And right now, because of the media, we are being influenced with fear. And that's when we have to start breathing and hydrating and detoxing and make it a lifestyle. Be in constant touch with your body. That tapping, that vibration goes through the tissue and it's shaking up and it's breaking up the density, the congestion. It's waking up the nervous system. It's bringing blood and lymph. And if you hit hard enough, it brings stem cells to that area to regenerate. That's how powerful we are. So I'll leave it at that, and hope that helped.
My gosh, Gary, you always bring something up that I'm like, I didn't know this. What I was thinking while you guys were talking is about, we talk about prevent disease and we're all, you know, a little older. What if we could teach or bring up our children, you know, from birth with all this information instead of, you know, they go to preschool and they learn all kinds of things, but nothing like this. And everything that we talked about today, everything that you guys mentioned, we should be able to teach that, or we should do that to our children. I don't have, you know, even my granddaughter is older, so too late for that.
Well,
But
the beauty of it is energy does not know age.
true, but listening, they don't listen anymore.
Well, yeah, that's true. Not until
Yeah.
they're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that I have some clients with younger children, and they have a heck of a time getting them to, you know, to eat the right food, the correct foods for our species.
Mhm.
Now, it made me think about a year ago, I started to set up a different social platform called Garden of Eden Social, and I put
Mhm.
groups in there, and I was like, I would love to have a group there that is, what do we teach our children? But people are all so engulfed in everything, Facebook and YouTube, that, you know, there's no activity on the site. But I would love to see all the things that we have been talking about, what is necessary for a happy and healthy life, because we think we want to be healthy, but we don't get healthy if we can't be happy. And those things just go together. And that's why when I mentioned those 19 things of, you know, health, part of health, it's all of that. It's all of that together. It
Mhm.
means health to me. And I hope that on that site, we can do a little bit more and get it out to people. And I did set up a group even on Facebook, because it seems that it's necessary. It's also called Garden of Eden Social. But that platform is completely away from anything, you know, the big things, not the Rumble or MeWe or YouTube or
Mhm.
what is it, Facebook. It's on its own. I can put there whatever, or everyone can put there whatever we feel is necessary to get out
Mhm.
to people. But yeah, people do have to register. And that's the same with, you know, when you first start on YouTube and on Facebook, you have to. But I hope we can get all this information that we are talking about now on that site. And all the videos are always there. That is why I was asking you, Gary, about getting your videos that you've been making even like courses on a platform. And I actually do have a video platform where you can put them if you don't want to put anything on YouTube. And then I can, you know, we can post it on outside of Facebook on Garden of Eden
Mhm.
Social.
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, we can do so much, and I feel that even with our podcast, with a lot of insights from you guys, it's we sometimes I feel like we're preaching to the choir. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we get to talk to the people who already know, but they then can share that information with their family members. But it would be nice if we can just give them a link and it's like, okay, go there and read about this. It's all there. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's Garden for everyone, you know, go there, register. It's Garden of Eden Social. And
Yeah.
I would love to see more activities there, and I do have to be more active there too. But there are groups for pretty much about anything and everything, and you can have your own group there, where you just post whatever you want to post in there, because I trust you guys. I know it will be all good anyway.
Mhm.
So that is how it's been set up. So anyway,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, Tony,
yeah.
I was just going to add one thing before we close it out today, because I think what I'm going to add now really kind of summarizes our whole conversation that we've had today, which has been very interesting, like normal, is that you were saying something about, it would be very amazing to teach kids from a young age on how to live these lifestyles so they don't have to have as much, challenges that we've all had from not knowing how to live, properly. And see, that's what is really a huge one that's hard for so many humans on this planet to begin to wrap their minds around and even be able to understand, is that how do we live like humans are really supposed to live? And so see, what happens is it goes back to the matrix analogy that we always like to talk about, is that when you take humans that are so used to living a suppressed human experience, so many of the things that we do, it suppresses our spirit from even being able to fully express its experience. And that's why you see it all the time. You see people starting to freak out, and they start to say, I can't even be around my family. I can't even talk with them. I can't even be around society. I can't go out to the, where in public. I can't go, to social get-togethers because I'm so sensitive to everything, because I can feel on a deeper level. I can cry on a deeper level. I can laugh on a deeper level. And it's because they're removing the obstructions that are blocking the flow of that energy, and it overwhelms them quite easily because they're not used to ever experiencing levels like that, because so much of our normal human existence is living suppressed, because so many things we do, it suppresses our energy from being able to get to that high vibrational state. Because the more you raise your vibrational state of the body, and all of the bodies, as Dr. Morse explains so well in his book, is that it starts to push out the negativity more and more. So you start to see more symptoms of elimination. You start to see more symptoms of weakness. Well, that starts to freak out a lot of people, because they start to think, oh, well, something I'm doing must be causing this. No, you're revealing it. You're bringing it to the surface because you've got the things out of the way that were suppressing it and holding it down. And so then, but it starts to also open up their mind. It starts to bring up all the old traumas, the dramas, the hardships, the things that they needed to let go of that negative energy, because they've been holding on to it out of, fear or regret, or also out of unforgiveness towards ourselves or others. So they're holding on to that negative energy, and so that's what's so hard for so many people, is to grasp the concept of what it's like to live a totally different lifestyle, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, than what we see all these other humans, the majority of humans on this planet, living those lives. So you have to first teach kids how can they live in the real world and not live in the matrix, and not even want to live in the matrix, and not feel bad about being different than everyone else. Because really, if you want to teach those kids how to live a better life, you have to teach them how to live the way humans should really be living, not be living the way that we've been living all these centuries and hundreds and thousands of years, because of the way that the programming and the teaching and all of these things to suppress us. A lot of these things have been taught to humanity to keep us down, to keep us from having our full potential, to being able to reach the highest levels, and so that's why we have to understand that it seems so strange. And that's why you hear people all the time, they're like, well, I can't even go to my family get-togethers anymore. I can't even, spend time with my family anymore, because we start to, have arguments, or we start to, have differences of opinion, or just even being around people that are doing habits and behaviors. And, like I even got to where I couldn't talk to some of my older friends that still, smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol, because it was just their energy, their vibrational energy from still consuming those substances. It was just hard to even have a conversation with them, and so that's why I'm just trying to explain to people that that's also what makes it so challenging for so many people, is they start to not feel normal. They start to feel so different, and they start to feel so hard to socialize with people on this planet, because people, they start to ask you questions when you do something so radically different than what they're doing. doing. And then that starts to make them feel like, well, are you trying to say we're all not living healthy and not living good lives? And it starts to make them feel like they're being judged just from your actions of how you're living, and so that's what we need to help people to understand, is that if you're willing to go down this road, then you need to understand that it's going to take lots of adjustments on learning how to live your life in ways that you never have even imagined that life could be like. And it also, what Gary was talking about earlier, there's a lot of reasons why we have these issues going on in the body, especially like with inflammation. He was talking about with the tapping, and all that is because of dehydration. When the body is so dehydrated and all those toxins and acids and inflammation are so stagnant and it can't move. That was also when he was talking about cellular respiration. You can't have cellular respiration if you don't have hydration, and so that's another component of it and stuff. And so that's one thing. If you really want to teach the youth, you have to first explain to their spirit in a very soft and loving way that bypasses the ego, and help them to understand that it's going to be quite a journey to go down this path, because you're going to learn how to live your life in a way that's going to be radically different than what most of these people around you are going to be living. And you need to just not feel like you're better than anyone and let the ego get too boasted, but also don't feel like that you can't, still enjoy your life around these other people that are choosing to live their life in different ways. Just find the things that you can, have common ground with them, and just find ways to communicate with them still in a loving way without being judgmental towards them. And hopefully they won't be judgmental towards you, and you can still be a part of, normal society and things. But you have to learn how to master the mind and those emotions that can come up with living in such a radically different world in the mental states. Once you know the truth, so it's just like where they told Neo, look how in the movie, it was such a perfect analogy, and I'll leave it at this, is that Morpheus came to Neo after Neo freaked out, and he said, I'm sorry, Neo, we normally don't take people out of the Matrix after they get so old, because they can't handle it mentally, because it's such a shock to their bodies, and like, look at that one guy. He was a traitor to all of them just because he couldn't take living in the real world. He would rather live in the fantasy and eat the imaginary steak, because it was better than having to live in the fake world and have to wake up to that every day. So that's what I'm getting at, is that we have to understand that sometimes the reality of how challenging life can be and how challenging it is on this planet and the way the planet is becoming, is that we can either see it on fire, or we can see it as a beautiful, changing, evolving world that is turning into something better and better every day. Because sometimes it takes turbulence and great chaos to create new change, but it's all how you view the world. Dr. Morse even talked about that. He said, you can go down the same road for every day for 20 years, but if you keep changing your perception on how you're viewing the road, you can look at it tomorrow in a totally different way that you didn't look at it those 20 years before that. And so that's what we need to just keep helping people to understand in this world moving forward, is that it's all your perception on reality and your awareness, and also on how you understand all these things and how you take on that whole experience of life. So that's what the biggest thing in teaching the young children of today is, help their mental state. And that's why you see so much of the youth being degraded from the mental things that are creating mental abuse. That's why you have all the people thinking that they're different genders and all these things. And I'm not trying to get on that subject and and all that. I'm just trying to point that out, that that's clearly from a biological state, that is a mental illness, that is a mental problem that people are having challenges from. And so we see that coming to the surface so much. So that's the biggest thing that we can do to help the youth, is help them to understand how it is to live mentally and spiritually and emotionally as a human in this world. And then they can be able to start to take on how to live like a true human, that's going to be so radically different than what most of the humans you see on this planet. And I would even dare to say 95 to 98% of the humans on this planet, because there's such a small percentage of us that will be out there, that could live on those higher states of what it really means to live as a true human on this planet. So that's kind of what I wanted to add. But I'll leave it at that, Tony. I don't want to drag it out any longer. But thank you for your patience. I thought that it was just important for the listeners to understand. Because so many people, they say that to us. They're like, I tried doing y'all's protocol, but it got me so unbalanced that I just couldn't take it. I was too sensitive. I could only last on all fruit for like 3 months because I got too sensitive, but at the same time, that's a good thing, but it's just hard for people to understand it when they haven't experienced it before, and it's new to them, but I'll pass it
Yeah.
back to you guys.
There's so much with this, what you mentioned, living like humans should live, and I'm thinking about
Right.
children in a classroom, and you have kids that just don't want to be there. They want to be outside in nature and
Mhm.
doing other things than sitting in a stuffy classroom. I know I was one of them, and I was always looking out the window, seeing the butterflies, etc. And I was like, you're not really there. I still had the highest grade, so I was good. They couldn't say anything about that, but it was like you didn't fit in. And when the stories of my husband, for instance, he skipped classes and he wanted to go out, and he was, like 7, 8, 9 years and wanted to be outside. And nowadays, when kids are like that and they can't sit still, what do? We give them medication so they fit in.
That's
And
right.
I
Well,
think that is the absolutely worst thing that we do for our kids, because with what that medication is doing to them affects them the rest of their lives.
that's right. Well, I was going to add right quick what you said is it's because what they teach, our spirits know that that's not going to give us true spiritual, excitement or spiritual, enjoyment, and that it's because most of education was trained to help you to be a good worker. It wasn't training to help you to be a good human or to be a spirit that will know all the tools you need to live a good spiritual life as a human experiencing this human life, and so that's why so many of us, we rejected the normal education systems, is because they were designed to teach us things that weren't really what we needed to learn, that was the most important. Now, I know some of those things they teach in school are important for us, but I'm saying not compared to how to truly live like a spirit having a human experience, and so that's why so many of us, we just wanted to go out and to experience the core things of earth, and that's why they say even up to 7 to 10 years that really kids shouldn't be confined into a classroom. They should spend most of their time out in the woods and
Mhm.
nature, because they learn most of what they need to learn out in those environments before they need to come in and learn the more book smarts, the more stuff that you find in like scientific stuff and everything and intellectual stuff, so because they learn so much just from interacting from the environment of nature, and the trees and the plants. And I think even beyond what people talk about, it's a very electrical experience too, because the plants and the trees and that ecosystem is communicating with their body, and it's teaching them and their microbes, their microbiology of their body too. And so that's another part of it as well, that those are things that people don't even really talk about, that is going on when you put your kids out in nature from a very young age. But
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
why
it's
they
amazing.
are forest schools in Norway,
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone wants to add more?
No,
It's
I think
Just
we
that,
covered, yeah, we covered everything pretty good. But go ahead, Gary. I didn't
yeah.
mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's all right. Uh, that's why when kids grew up on farms, they learned about nature. They learned about animals. They were interacting with the animals. They were feeding the animals. Uh, they say kids won't eat vegetables. Well, if they grow them, they'll eat them
yeah.
because they watched it grow, or fruits, or berries, or melons, or whatever it is, right? And so from a young age, that's where you get to really guide them and share with them the power of what they're doing. And that is one of the things the Matrix took away, was the farms. And it's getting we're getting fewer and fewer farms and more synthetic foods, which is something we're going to have to really be careful of. So that's going to be a whole new learning curve, even for us, is flavorless food with tons of sugar and 3D printed meat and rubberized bananas and lettuce and all that stuff. We're going to have to learn. I predicted, I don't know, probably 10 years ago now, that eventually, to have our own fresh stuff, we're going to have to develop an ecosystem underground with a little bit of window, but we'll have underground greenhouses. And you can see they're growing in warehouses now. The matrix is growing in warehouses. What that's going to do to the food, I'm not really sure. But if it's going to be the freshest, most organic food that we can grow. But we have to get sunlight on the plant somehow.
Yeah.
And we need to keep getting sunlight on this plant. We're just a plant that can walk around. That's all we are. And we have to, like them, they can't, a plant, there is nothing on earth that can make a mineral or a vitamin, I should say, a vitamin. It's the microorganisms in the ground, and then the plant pulls that up, and it's a relationship between the microorganisms and the plant, because the microorganisms create everything that the plant sucks up, and the plant gives back what the microorganisms need for them to live. Well, we're putting that microorganism, it's actually their waste, which is our food. It's kind of like the trees, the other half of our lungs. They give off oxygen, we give off carbon dioxide, which is the other half of their lungs. Even our skin breathes. If you remember way back, they made a James Bond movie. It was called Golden Girl or something. But they painted this woman. They painted her entire body gold with gold paint. And there's a spot right back here on your back. They painted that, and within half an hour, she suffocated to death.
Oh, Gary,
Because
that's amazing that you said that. Did you know the same thing happened to the Tin Man in the original 1930s? I don't think he died, but he got very sick. When they did that. And then, did you know there was another story of a person that they wanted to have an internal sauna, and they wrapped their whole body with saran wrap so tight, and then they went and did X. I think they passed out. I don't know if they died, but they got close to it.
Yes, overheating and suffocation. It's not just our lungs that need oxygen. Our skin has to breathe too. It's constantly moving. Like our hair is a detox. So when
life is so complex like that, yeah.
Yeah. When we sweat, the sweat hooks onto the hairs, and it works its way out to the end so that it keeps it flowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our hair does. No matter where we have hair. And what are we doing? We're shaving it all off. And we're losing part of our natural detail.
Also, I've heard your hair is like your antenna too for vibrations of energy that are in your etheric body. Your body that's outside of your physical body, and it's very important because it's kind of like your antenna to to the rest of the world and the atmosphere. And that's why so many of the older cultures said that you want to have you don't want to shave all your hair off, even your main hair. Actually, the longer you have it, the better your antenna is, and that's why a lot of your cultures, they strongly revered having long hair. Even Arnold Ehret said a very small snippet in his book talking about the power of having the long hair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was some guides, Native Americans, that they hired during World War II, and the first thing they did when they got them in was cut their hair off, and they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't find their way because it was their hair that was their connection to their intuition, and they could intuitively follow things. And as soon as they cut the hair off, they lost that.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, it really is on such a deep level beyond
Mm-hmm.
what most people, it goes to the into the subject where a lot of people can't understand what we're talking about until they experience it themselves, because
Right.
you really can't have the true awareness until you go through the experience, of it. So kind of explaining that to people, if you've never had long hair before, then you don't
Mm-hmm.
really understand the difference. I never really knew either until I grew hair down to almost my backside. You know what I mean? And then
Mm-hmm.
I noticed the difference versus having short hair, and it was just interesting. And a lot of these things are real subtle. And of course, again, if you have too many suppressant agents, you can't pick up and detect that subtle energy sometimes, so yeah, it's really fascinating. And that's why I think we need to put this information more and more out there to people that find this interesting enough that they want to dive into these subjects and discover where it can take them on their journey in life, because that's really what it's about. Because that's all we've ever done when we got inspired by other great people. That's all
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Morse did. That's all Dr. Arnold Aird, all these people. Now, there was some pioneers that discovered these things on their own as well, just from trying to experiment with things. But I'm saying really all information is just being passed around to each other throughout the ages of time, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because even that's why we talk about in our fruit communities, even the Greece. There was groups of Greek people that they spent hundreds of years living on primarily fruits, and talking about the importance
Mm-hmm.
of the fruitarian, principles and all that, even way back then in those eras. And just think of how much of this information was suppressed and lost from the previous, societies and groups of people, just because they didn't want us to have that information. I mean, there's so many subjects we could go on and on about, and like
Oh, yeah.
sound technology and how important sound and vibration is. That's why they
Mm-hmm.
destroyed all the bells after World War II, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was. And how sound is so important. That's why they had all the sound receptors on top of a lot of the antennas on top of a lot of the churches, and the churches were
Mm-hmm.
designed to help emit the sound out to the people there, but also into the community around where they were. And they actually talked about it was like sound therapy and sound healing. And then the people started taking that away because it was just one more tool that people used to help them to have better health. And of course, when the medical association got on board and all those evil corporations, they took away a lot of that, just like all the old Indian knowledge that was being used before the pharmaceutical era came about, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that stuff, it's just there's so much of this information that's out there. It's just a matter of just finding what you can use that's out there that could help improve your life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. But thank you, Tony, so much for letting us, have a little extended talk today. Because, when the more of us that you get together, it's gonna be like this. We're gonna have some very in-depth and amazing conversations. I remember I can't speak for you, Gary, or for Tony, but I remember when they had roundtable at some of Dr. Morse's live trainings. It was amazing watching them talk with each other, and how that they would springboard off of each other, and they would talk about all
Mm-hmm.
different kind of topics and subjects. And so that's when I really think we shine to our greatest, is when we all come together and we just keep, talking about these different subjects, because we can also at the same time learn from each other, and it helps us to jog different memories from our minds on different subjects that we can all contribute together. And it's very fascinating. And I know the listeners find it very fascinating, because they don't expect some of the things we're going to talk about, because we don't know we're even really going to talk about it until we let it just flow. And that's the same way
Mm-hmm.
that Dr. Morse really would never follow a script in school. He would just let it flow organically the way it
Mm-hmm.
needed to, and that's the best way to talk with people, is just let it come about the way it needs to be. Don't really try to be too rigid in your approach, because you're really limiting yourself by being that rigid. Yeah.
The
Yeah, but
funny
thank
thing
thank
is,
you, Tony.
when I hear you guys talking in a way going off the topic, I was like, you know what? Next time we have a new topic, anything goes.
Well, that's how we keep discovering new topics that we
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
talk about in future times too, is we just start, just talking about different subjects that are very interesting, and then we'll start having feedback from the people that are listening, and they'll say, I want you guys to go more into that subject and talk more about that, and so it's just, you have to get people together that have a strong passion and a fascination about it, and it's something that lasts them throughout their lifetime, and see, that's what I haven't really talked to Gary a lot, but I always noticed in our community that he was always there and he had a strong passion for it, because I've seen you around for several decades now, or at least as long as Dr. Morse has really been going. I think you've been following about as long as I have, since around 2000 and probably 2012, 2013 or 11. When he started really making his early YouTube videos, that's when I started following him myself too. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what year did you take your level 1? Because I think you took it around that time too, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Don't
Time is
remember?
not my
Oh
time
yeah, I
is not my
understand.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been to 3 of them,
Oh, awesome.
and that was back when he was having lives,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, they were absolutely amazing. I mean, he's the guy that woke me up. That
Yeah,
that
yeah.
caused the awakening, and an
Yeah.
awakening is not out here; it's in here.
That's right.
To solidify or start and help to solidify who you are as an individual, not like the whack-a-mole thing, right? If you have an original thought that goes above the accepted programming and you stick your head up, there's somebody there with a hammer to hit you on the head to drive it back down, right? And it's and that's what we face in censorship, but we've always been censored. They're just doing it different now.
Exactly. Exactly.
And we don't run the matrix. And it's not a good idea to run from it either, because we have to learn from it. We have to be part of it. I had my foot the uh, in the energetic world to the point where I was not in the matrix anymore, and I had to come back. And I have to keep one foot in each world. We're recorders. We're recording everything that's happening. And to be in the matrix and not affected by the matrix is a whole lot different than stepping away from it. There's a whole group of people that are trying to get out of the matrix. Well, it's here. We created it, our ancestors up through, and it keeps evolving. And to maintain our balance within it is critical. And we see what happens when we don't. And that was the toilet paper incident, where we were going to run out of toilet paper. And people were fighting in the stores, and oh my God, it was unbelievable. But that was all planned. That was the plan to put the jab into practice. I'm wondering if they would have waited if people hadn't reacted the way they did with the toilet paper thing. That was the setup. Let's see if they're ready. Created a toilet paper shortage. Everybody went nuts. They were already in super fight or flight. And then a few years later, we had the jab. We had the whole pandemic. And everybody, not everybody, but I don't know what the percentage was, but it was high, walked into it. And if you haven't heard the Fauci during the Fauci trials, what he said, that was all planned. When people get disoriented, they will do whatever you tell them. And that's what they did. They disoriented everybody. And they said, you have to have this, or you'll lose your job, or you'll lose this, or you'll lose that, or you can't see your family, or, and it was all a lie. But most people stepped right into it because they were programmed to do that. And they still are. I was talking to somebody the other day. There's a woman that works at the hospital in Rhode Island, and she's had 9 boosters. And I'm like, She's still there. She's still there, but she's at 9 boosters.
Well, what
And
I
I'm like,
think, I know it is so crazy, and what I think is so sad is people have lost their common sense. People have lost their
yeah,
ability to think outside of what they're told. They just believe these people without even questioning them, without ever
yeah.
saying, could this possibly do something to me that's not going to be good? Why am I so willing to just line up? I mean, there was even a video someone made. They were standing in the entrance of a building and they acted like a fake security guard, and they just had like they didn't even have like a scanner that scanned for like
Mhm.
weapons in their hand. They had something else, but they acted like they told people stretch out your arms, and they like scanned them like they had weapons, and they were fake. And the people just lined up,
Mhm.
and they were just said they were so willing to do it just because they were following the other people like sheeple,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
just really sad to see how people don't have enough awareness to question the narrative, to stop and say, well, hey, wait a sec, maybe I need to look into this. Maybe I need to think about this before I do something that I'm not going to be able to reverse, or do something that I'm going to be able to take back, or do something that's going
Mhm.
to, put me in a bad situation, And so
Mhm.
that's just a lot of what's happened is we're moving more and more to like that movie Idiocracy, where people are just, I don't know if you've ever seen that or have ever heard of it, but it's so ironic how, that's way it's really starting to get more and more, is that people are just not questioning things. They're not using their own brain. They're not thinking outside of what the narrative is, and like even with the toilet paper thing, really, if you boil it down to it, the toilet paper is silly because a bidet is so much cleaner and so much more hygiene and so
Mhm.
much better than just using toilet paper. Because actually, if you want to talk about toilet paper is very poisonous because it's been bleached, number one, and number two,
Yeah.
it's been treated with formaldehyde to keep it stiff so it don't
Mhm.
dissolve whenever we go to wipe. And a lot of people don't realize you're literally rubbing formaldehyde and bleach on your privates where your hormones are majorly created in those areas. And so you're really
Mhm.
poisoning yourself majorly. And
Mhm.
so really, in a way, if you could think about it in a more open way instead of being so closed-minded, you could say, really, they're doing us a favor. They're helping people to wake up and realize I don't need to be using the toilet paper anyways. So maybe really they're doing me a favor and I can go to using something better. Even if you just wash yourself off with some water and use a rag to dry yourself off with, my goodness, why are you being so scared of your poo in the first place? Because your poo is
Right.
part of who you are, but also it's
Mhm.
loaded full of healthy microbes. I mean, why do you
Mhm.
think that they take someone that they're very low in natural bacteria and they give them a fecal transplant of
Mhm.
someone's poo that's loaded full of good microbes and bacteria? It's just programming that people have been programmed to think, oh, that's disgusting, oh, that's nasty, and it's only really nasty because of what people are consuming. If you're not consuming dead carcasses and poisonous foods and things that are stinky and will turn to putrid mass, then you're not really going to have a problem with the waste in the first place. And so
Right.
it's just these things that people have no awareness. And when you tell them, they scratch their head and they look at you like a deer in headlights because it's way
Mhm.
beyond their level of comprehension and understanding, and it's just, and then they start to say, oh, well, if this was so true, why isn't everyone taught this? And then that just shows you by their response that they don't understand that, of course, they're not going to tell you this information because they want you to continue to be a sheeple. They want you to not question the
Right.
authority. They want you to listen to the man with the white coat on and what he says,
Mhm.
and it's just very sad. When all of that shit came out, I said, okay, here's one statement I'll make to the world. Why would I ever trust a company that got the largest fine ever given to any company in the entire world? And that's just one statement of why I would never trust those people. But number two, even taking it beyond that, is no chemical substance is going to make you healthier. That's a huge fallacy to begin with.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's like, you need to use some of your common sense here, is that, are again, like, what did we start the conversation off, or where what I started my conversation off, even talking about the tattoos, is that no product that's a foreign substance is going to be beneficial to the body if it's not from nature, if it's not an herb, if it's not a plant, if it's not a fruit or not a vegetable.
Right.
You know, if it's not natural, the body doesn't recognize it as something that's beneficial. It thinks it's been poisoned. It thinks it's a foreign substance, you know. So that's why those things that are created, they make it seem like it's going to really help you, when really it's doing the opposite. You know, and they never stop and think, well, you know, what if it was created that way on purpose? And then they start to think, oh, you're just talking some crazy talk. When the irony is that that's how they gaslight you, or they, all those terms that are popular these days, is that a lot of times the things they tell you, if you reverse it, that's really what the truth is, you know, because they
Yes.
purposely are doing that to make you confused, to make you question reality, you know, and that's what, so, you know, and you see that even playing out in all of our politics and all those things these days, is you can see very well what's going on. You have two dynamics going on. You have the narcissistic, psychopathic individuals of the world, the takers of the world, the ones that, you know, just rule the world with, you know, psychological tactics and psychopathic tactics. And then you have your givers of the world, the ones that, you know, give the sacrifice and the willingness to help others as a priority over always wanting something in return, you know. And that's, you have those two dynamics playing out on this land of duality, you know. And so that's again what's going on, and that's why you're seeing it's more of a spiritual warfare, it's more of a mental warfare, it's more of a psychological warfare than anything else, you know. And so yeah, so as you see,
Okay.
Toni, we can
Yeah.
keep going on and on.
Yeah, I know. I have to stop you because we're over 2 hours already. Sarah had to leave.
Yeah, well, thank you, Toni, for letting us talk today.
Yeah,
It's been
I
fun.
wanted to add something to it when
Okay,
you
and I
said
promise I'll leave it
about
off where we're at. You go ahead and you do the closing remarks, Toni.
okay, it was about the last part. It's like, okay, you want to prevent disease, don't take any jabs. Stay away from chemicals. Look into your household. What stuff are you using? When you mentioned the toilet paper, and I am sure for us who have been on all fruit or maybe fruit and greens, or maybe a cooked meal here and there, but when we were on all fruit, we did not have to wipe our butt. It's clean. And I am sure that you guys must have experienced that too. Otherwise, I would almost think you
Oh
weren't
yeah.
100% fruit, because it is clean and that is how it's supposed to be. We were not, you know, the whole humanity was not meant to be that we need to have all kinds of tools to be able to survive. I wasn't really that worried with having no toilet paper available. But yeah, it's a good thing to know what is all in there. And I am already sure next week we're going to talk about health, anything goes. So no other topic, because it can be anything, because so many things are affecting our health, and there is so much fun stuff that we can do to become healthier, to feel better, to have more joy in our lives. So I want to thank you guys so much for being here and sharing everything. And yeah, I would love to talk with the both of you what we can accomplish on the site where we have all our stuff together, and and not, you know, having to use Facebook or YouTube, but we'll do that sometime. Thank you all so much for being here, listening to us, sharing, and we keep learning, and I love you all. So till the next time, thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.